Good afternoon. Hand today is Ace-7 of diamonds. So this is a 10-handed table, but we are currently short-handed with 5. Villain 4 limps, and it folds to me. Now, Villain 4, I have 23 hands on him. He's playing 35-13. He's playing somewhat loose. He is going to be aggressive a little bit, so I have him raising in early position 0, but he has raised first in once in the mid position, 1 out of 2 in the cutoff. I think we'll take out like the usual suspects for the raising. Short-handed, probably raise that. This player may be, playing 35% of hands, maybe playing more like higher cards, along with pocket pairs as part of the limp. So, maybe something like this. If he adjusts properly. If he doesn't, we're probably looking at something like that and take out some more of those. I'm going to say that he's playing more the big cards here. We'll give him all the suited kings. So that's his range, and then we're on the button. I don't have a whole lot of experience with short-handed play, so normally I just stick to my regular range, button range. And I think with a raise, you can raise 4 or 5, and I think you're going to get the job done. At least this player is playing tight, mostly passive. I don't expect, if I raise, I don't expect him to come along. If he does come along, he's got a strong hand. I don't know anything about Villain 3, but he bought in for 40, which makes me think he probably doesn't like playing full stack, so it's probably on the weaker side of things. So I did raise 4 big blinds, and Villain 4 called. Is he going to fold some of his hands? No, probably not. I think if he's going to limp, he's looking to play it. And 4 big blinds is just kind of like a standard type of raise. So I think this is his range, 28.5. We have 378 combos. We have this range, so 31.2 and 414 combos. And we see a flop of 10-10-3. Now, this is kind of an interesting board because now it's unlikely that anyone has a 10. Makes it harder for anyone to have a 10. And the question then becomes, what should we do? Should we bet? Should we call? Or should we check behind? It all's going to kind of depend on what type of player we're up against. So some players will always call this because they don't believe that we have a hand. And that means when we c-bet here, we can easily c-bet all of our pairs. So our over pairs, our trips, we can c-bet all of those for value and expect, and along with probably our 2-card backdoor flush draws as a bluff. Let's add those 2-card backdoor flush draws as a bluff. So you're looking at like 2-1, and against those players, they're going to call. They're going to call with such a wide range that we shouldn't be striving to c-bet, more than this 37%. But if we're up against a player that is tight and nitty and just isn't going to call, basically they're only going to call if they have a pair or trips. So they're only calling, this is a dry board in terms of flush and straight draws. They're only going to be calling this over pair plus. They won't even call 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. They might call, let's say, at 50% frequency, but whatever the turn card is, if they don't hit their trips, they're just going to fold. So those players, we can be much more liberal in their betting, in our betting. So we could easily start to bet over cards as bluffs. We can start betting these pocket pair below the top card for a little bit of value. And then to kind of bluff later, we're probably betting middle pair, any of these 3s. And you can see that we're still at like 2-1, but we're c-betting 70% of hands at this point. I'm not sure if I'd bet 2s, but if it is a player that's going to be over folding, then yeah, go ahead and do that. Maybe even the ace high. Maybe we end up just go ahead and bet everything. 100% of our range. Now, what type of player is this? Unfortunately, we only have 23 hands. He did limp, so I'm going to assume that he is, if we bet, he's probably going to be calling with any of these pairs. He's probably going to be calling with overcards, probably, and possibly ace high hands. 2-card backdoor flush draws, I don't think so. I think those will fall in with like some of these overcards and the ace high hands. So I think he's going to be calling the 68.1%, which means that when we bet, we're going to have to be betting a little bit more for value. So I think we're going to be 2-card backdoor flush draws. Hold on, let's see here. Now, our overcards, I think we're going to be betting as a bluff. And then our overpair plus, we're going to be betting for value because I think he's going to be coming along for a lot. And that means we're going to be checking, a lot of our 2-card backdoor flush draws. So, like the rest of those 2-card backdoor flush draws, we're going to be these pocket pairs, these 9s, the 4s, the middle pairs, the ace highs, no mate hands, all of those things. So what does he do? I believe he checks, and it's on us. So I bet, and I think this is going to be the bet range that I'm going to make here, or that I think we should be making. So I'm going to bet that, and I'm going to assume that their flop calling range is this. All right, so they've called 68.1%. They have 222 hands. We are betting 39.4 or 39.3. We have 148 hands in our range. And we see, and he calls. So we bet about half, and I think that's okay. Half is going to get the job done with, especially against any sort of tight, nitty type of player. So he calls, and now we get the 3 of hearts, and that's probably one of the worst cards that can absolutely come here, because if he doesn't believe us, a player like this, if he doesn't believe that we have an overpair, he's still not going to believe it. So I think he's going to be calling with a very wide range again. I think this is just an unfortunate hand. Now, the other player, a tight nitty player, I think this is actually a decent hand because it allows us to bet. And I think he's going to be folding his 9s to 4s, 9s to 6s type hands. Still call with his 10s, but he'll be folding again. So he checks, and at this point, he's going to check his entire range. And I do think if I bet, he's going to be calling basically almost everything. I mean, probably even his ace high hands again. Hands I don't have are those broadways. I just think if I bet, he's probably going to call unless I size up. And then if I size up, you have to ask, I mean, if we put ourselves in his shoes, why am I sizing up? If I don't have a 10, then let's say here, who are we talking about here? So if I'm the opponent and I see a big bet, I'm thinking, why are you betting that high if you have a 10? I mean, at best, we're going to be chopping the pot if I myself have a 10. So at a big hand like, and also with a bet like that, I'm thinking, okay, even if you have an overcard, I could overpair jacks to aces. I could easily have the ace or the 10, or I could easily have a 3. It's like it doesn't make sense. It almost looks like he's just trying to buy it with 2 overs. So I think I'm going to be calling. So here I just think we should be checking because again, even if we bet small, betting small is probably a little bit scarier. Betting half, maybe a third of a pot. Now that actually looks even scarier because now that looks like, oh man, maybe he does have that 10, or maybe he has a 3 and he's trying to get me to call one more time. I think at bigger bets, I'm just not going to be scared of unless it's a rock. And then when it's a rock, and he makes a huge bet like that, he's got the 10 or he has a 3. So he checks, and I think he's checking his entire range. And now it's on us. And given this card and against this player, or at least how I perceive this player, I think we check 100%. And I hope that's what I did. Yep, we checked 100. We're going to be checking 100%. Because again, that hand doesn't really change anything at all. So we have 146 combos in our range. He still has his range, his 100% of his range. And that's 218 combos. And now we see an 8 of diamonds, and that's not that great. I think if we had Broadway, I think that would be much better. Ace, king, queen. Because now we can realistically bet on the river and represent ace, king, or queen. And I think he's just going to fold, any of his non-pair hands. Might call ace high just to see if I have it, but I think with that, we checked. We either have the 10 and we're hoping to get more value out of it, so we check the turn to bet on the river, or we have, unsuited or unpaired cards, and now that river pairs us, and now we have a better 2 pair than what's on the board. So 8 of diamonds comes out. Our range's equity just got a little bit worse. He checks, and here the question is, if I bet, what is he gonna call with? I think he's gonna call with basically any pair, even those middle pairs, those 8s. 4s, 5s, 6s, 7s probably call, because now he's hoping that I just have ace high. I think ace high folds. I do kind of think ace high folds. Well, definitely the nothing. King, queen, king, jack, queen, jack, I think is going to fold. Ace high, though, maybe he calls, because now he's playing the board with the ace high. So if he calls 100%, that means he's calling 74.3% of the time. And then when we think about what hands we're going to be betting, ace high only gives us 18% equity. Overpair gives us 67, so I think overpair plus is what we would bet for value. I don't even think we could really justify a bluff, because he's folding 25% of the time, because he's only folding 25% of the time. So let's see what he does. He checks, and I think, yeah, we have to have overpair plus. I checked, so I think we're looking at this is what I think my range is. I checked, and I showed the a7. So do I have the a7? I do. I have the a7 of diamonds. So that is in the range. We didn't improve. Our equity didn't improve. If we had a diamond, I think then we can justify betting again as a bet, because we improved with the backdoor draw. If the turn was a jack, queen, king, I think we improved our overall. We increase the chance that he's going to be folding, so we could justify our second barrel. But in this case, it didn't happen. So he shows king 9 off, which we don't have in his range, because we did the broadways, the overcards here. But let's do that. Let's take out those and say that he calls with the kings. I still don't think that's going to change a whole lot. So we have 3 of hearts. Still think he's going to call. He didn't. And then we said 8 of diamonds. Yeah, now he has a king. So I think we played this okay. I think the turn was just unfortunate. All right, if you like this hand, look tomorrow for another hand.